Hello and welcome to this podcast from Blackwell Online. My name is George Miller, and my guest today is John Gray, Emeritus Professor of European Thought at the London School of Economics. Of all his many publications, none has had greater impact or higher sales than his 2002 book, Straw Dogs. The book is short, aphoristic, deeply challenging to many of our fundamental beliefs, a profound reassessment of what it means to be human. One of the book's many admirers, novelist Will Self, described it in The Independent as that rarest of things, a contemporary work of philosophy devoid of jargon, wholly accessible and profoundly relevant to the rapidly evolving world we live in. Psychologist Adam Phillips called it at once daunting and unsettling, and the journalist Brian Appleyard hailed it as unquestionably one of the great works of our time. When I met John, and before we got to the contents of the book, I asked him to explain the title.
A common question about Straw Dogs is, where does the title come from? And although there was a well-known and even almost notorious film with that title, the origin of the title is not from the film. It may be indeed that the title of the film came from where my title came from, which is in a Chinese mystical text, the Tao Te Ching, a Taoist text, in which there are some lines which say that the heavens are ruthless. They treat humans as straw dogs. And if you investigate what straw dogs meant in ancient Chinese thought and practice, straw dogs were ritual objects created from straw, which during the rituals were treated with extreme respect and reverence, but when the rituals were over, were trampled into the dirt or disregarded. And so one of the themes of Straw Dogs is reflected in that title, in that I aim to set out a view of things in which humans are not central in the world, in which the kind of centrality that they've enjoyed in Western religion is not assumed, and indeed it's assumed not that the universe is malevolent, but that the universe is indifferent to humans, and that therefore, as it were, and will treat humans ruthlessly if humans act so as to disrupt processes of life. So one of the applications of this idea, I suppose, in the book is that in the Gaia theory of James Lovelock, the Earth, not the universe as a whole, but the Earth, the planet, our planet is understood as being in certain respects like a single organism, and a single organism which will readjust its component parts in order to carry on living as a single organism. And if one of those parts, the human species, has disrupted the system as a whole, then the readjustments that will take place will have no regard for human well-being or human survival. They'll simply be the adjustments which will lead to another stable state, even if in that stable state there are far fewer humans. So humans will be treated as straw dogs, if you like, by Gaia.
The book appeared in 2002, John, and I wondered how 9/11 came in the writing of the book. Had you begun the book before it happened? Was it in any way catalytic of some of the ideas in it?
9/11 was not central to Straw Dogs, but it did illustrate one of the themes of Straw Dogs, and in fact figures in Straw Dogs in a short section in Straw Dogs, in that one of the illusions that Straw Dogs is intended to dispel or correct is the idea that there's something inherently good about modernity, about being modern, and that the worst phenomena in the world are somehow atavisms or regressions to earlier states of human history. So people say things like, well, Hitler was taking Europe back to medievalism, or Al-Qaeda is a movement or a network whose goals are medieval. Of course, there may be something of truth in that, in respect of Al-Qaeda at any rate, because some of the Islamist ideology associated with Al-Qaeda talks about renewing ancient caliphates and so forth. But My point in the book is that Nazism and certain of the more extreme forms of Islamism, as well as of other modern phenomena, are genuinely and truly modern, not only in the sense that they are possible actually only by using modern technology. I mean, in the case of Al-Qaeda, relatively simple modern technology when they perpetrated 9/11, but much more complex technology because they're also a virtual organization that uses the web a lot and has encrypted websites and so on and so forth. But they're modern not only in the sense that they use these contemporary technologies and could only really exist at the global level. They do exist, or did exist, Al-Qaeda, in a world in which these technologies are common and central, but also in their goals. And this is what I think is not understood, because if you would say what are the goals which are distinctive of modern cultures or civilizations? Well, I guess the idea of transforming society so as to accord with some model or utopia or a dream of conflictless human community, which can be achieved in the future and perhaps even in the near future, particularly by violent measures, by extreme forms of violence, I think is a modern goal. I mean, until very recently in human history, last few hundred years, there have always been dreams of a perfect or harmonious society, even of utopia. But mostly they were put in the irrecoverable past or in parts of the world which weren't yet on the map. So the idea that such a harmonious, peaceful, nearly perfect community realizing all human aspirations, or all the really valuable or important ones, could be achieved in the future and could be achieved through human action and not through divine intervention, and even more could be achieved by the systematic use of lethal force and violence. That's distinctively modern, and it's what the Bolsheviks had in common with the Nazis, so there are important differences between them, and what they both have in common with Al-Qaeda. To that extent, it is an important feature of the book, although only a short part of the book deals with Al-Qaeda. It is important because it's intended to attack and undermine, or at least to put in the minds of readers a question mark over this idea that being modern is always good. Some of the worst features of the world we live in are the most modern. It doesn't mean that I or the book recommends ceasing to be modern, because being modern is a fate for us. We can't go back to any pre-modern situation or civilization. And also there are many good features about being modern, like anesthetic dentistry, public health, longevity, and modern features of life like a degree of tolerance, the emancipation of women, better treatment for, in some contexts of the world, at sometimes for the weak and so on. But being modern has in fact also included some of the very, very worst things that have happened in the 20th century. Nothing as terrible as the Holocaust happened before the 20th century. There were many pogroms and many forms of persecution. But nothing as terrible as that happened, and there were many reasons for that, including the invention of a pseudo-scientific category of race in the 19th century. But also what was necessary for a unique crime, as the Holocaust was a certain type of technology, a certain type of transportation, a certain type of industrialization of mass killing. So I have wanted to implant in the reader's mind a question about being modern.